All right, welcome back. Kalu Aja joins me right now virtually. Hello, Kalu. Welcome to the program again. Good morning. I hope you can hear me now.
Hi, Nancy. Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, let's get started. We have a lot to talk about. I haven't spoken to you since the elections. We last spoke before the elections. Just speak to me about your polls. What's your gauge about the 2023 presidential election?
Well, I'm looking at it in terms of the economic side, right? So post-election, what have we seen? We have seen the yields, the Nigerian bond yields have sort of dropped, which means the prices have gone up. So there's been a post-election bump for Nigeria because I think investors are saying Buhari is leaving and someone else is coming in. So what we're seeing is the Buhari exit bump. We are yet to see should we say, the new president bump in. That's on the bond market, the long-term market. Stock markets is looking very, very flat. I've also noticed that the trade in the Nigerian treasury bills and bonds has also been flat. This is reflective of should we say, the lawsuits done that by the other parties against the APC that has been declared winner by INEC. So uncertainty is still there. The markets have still not adjusted and said we have a clear winner, i.e., the court have already decided that. And that is reflective in the bond, in the stock market, and also in the trading in Nigerian bonds and treasury bills. That's where we are on the economic side of the elections. Overall, turnout was not that high, but I think the beavers maybe might have contributed to that. But again, a disappointment in terms of the ICT, right? That weren't able to transmit results from certain states. Also tied us into the Naira thing as well. So it looks like there's a big problem in the IT infrastructure side in Nigeria. But that's my overall take of the elections and what I think, look at it, yeah, how I look at it.
Okay, Carlo, let's talk about the Supreme Court's judgment that has come. It did come last Friday, and Nigerians are still confused because the federal government, as well as the Central Bank of Nigeria, remain silent. No further directive. We saw yesterday that some banks were reissuing the old notes. Some motorists, traders, and many Nigerians are rejecting those old notes. Where do we go from here, really? What do you think about this?
Yeah, that's the whole cashless and the Naira redesign policy has really not been implemented properly. Again, remember there are two policies that we're talking about. There's a cashless policy which has been ongoing since I think 2012,
2012.
which is
Yes.
to do the inclusion, to bring Nigerians into the financial space, i.e. through digital money means. Then there's the redesign, which started last year, right? Both have sort of come together, and what we're seeing right now in Nigeria are long lines, no cash, and then the lawsuit by the governors to get the naira to be legal tender. That case is a bit funny to me because the naira, even the old ones, remain legal tender. Just that CBN has said that banks can no longer accept them. So in practice, they're not legal tender, but legally they're legal tender. So I'm not sure what the Supreme Court's judgment has done, what it has changed. The notes were always legal tender. Now the Supreme Court has said they're going to be legal tender till December. That in of itself is a contradiction because if there's legal tender, then why December? It should be legal tender forever. But leaving that aside, what we see on the streets is really that there's still no cash out there. And the cash out there is a deliberate policy. The CBN governor said it quite clearly that there will be less cash in circulation after the Naira design policy. So that is just what is playing out. And they didn't really plan this out. I think where they failed is to look at the alternatives to cash. That was where they really failed in implementation. If you restrict cash and guys could do transfers and pay via POS, which is the financial inclusion part of this, then we might not have seen the pain and the lines. But cash has failed, and then the other methods, the POS, the cards have also failed. So it's a big, big, big problem right now. People are losing confidence even in cash. You don't know which cash to have, old one, new one. But let me just say this, I don't think anyone is going to be I wouldn't advise anyone to hold the old naira, irrespective of what the court has said. You don't hold currency that has a terminal date. Doesn't make any sense for anyone, especially going through the hassles we've seen to change. So that's my take. The Supreme Court is, I think, playing both sides, trying not to give a real ruling and giving a legal ruling that is not really, not doesn't change anything in fact. Naira is always legal tender. The central bank always determines legal tender. When you say it expires by December, then you are saying it's not legal tender, which is against even the same law that you are interpreting. Again, that's my take. That's it.
Kalu, when you said don't hold the old currency, um, we've seen what has happened, at least in the last few months, that many Nigerians are jostling to get the new currency, yet we don't have so many of those currencies in circulation. So how do you just oppose it? Where do we get the new currencies from? You know,
The fact is, look at it this way. Assuming you were an SME trader, you held the old currency, then they told you 200 naira was no longer legal tender, then it came back as legal tender. Then now central bank is telling you that everything is legal tender, but the central bank has not said anything. The president has not said anything. So you are a bit confused. And for me, when there's uncertainty, go with the last order. The central bank legally has the power to determine what's legal tender. It's in their act, it's in the law, right? So go with that. If the Supreme Court has said December, so why give yourself the hassle? If you can avoid the old notes, avoid the old notes, right? And I think what the central bank has not done is to give that alternatives. We should be having zero online transfer fees, zero ATM fees, zero POS. We should be reducing the pain of the Nigerians that do not have cash because they are suffering for what they didn't plan for. That's my take. You don't want to hold a currency that has a terminal date and that its future is still uncertain. The central bank till today hasn't said anything. So you are the one going to bear the risk should you hold that currency. Don't listen to the governors, executive, and CBN. Just follow the law. If the currency has been declared as not legal tender, then don't hold it. That's just my take.
aren't you going against the Supreme Court judgment by saying that we shouldn't hold the old currencies, despite the Supreme Court judgment saying that is against the 1999 Constitution? You know, so which supersedes which? The Constitution or the CBN Act?
The Supreme Court said that the currency is still legal tender till
Till.
December.
Mm-hmm.
But but that is already law. There was no debate if it was legal tender. The central bank said they had the power to determine legal tender. It's in their act. They determine legal tender. The president approves. So the Supreme Court didn't change that relationship. All they did was extend the period you could take your naira back to the bank. That's my interpretation. Because they simply said, yes, it's legal tender, but you didn't give us sufficient time to swap over. So we're going to give you December. But that in of itself is contradictory because any naira ever issued is legal tender forever. You simply cannot change the Nigerian commercial bank. You can go to the central bank and exchange that currency for a new one. So you see where the lacuna is in the central bank's ruling. It's like they want to appease both sides. Hey, we've given you an order. So it's legal tender, but it's till December. My own take to you as an SME guy is this. There's been so much back and forth over this. 200 naira is legal tender today. Tomorrow it's not. Now it's till December. You don't want to take that hassle. You don't want that hassle. Go with the new one. Go with the POS. Go with the digital. Let them sort themselves out. When they agree what is legal tender and what time is extended to you, then go with them. But for now, when there's uncertainty, go with the less risky option, which is the new naira and digital options.
Kalu, this judgment, perhaps it is the first, if I'm not mistaken, along this monetary policy lines. What does this judgment really say moving forward? Since there's a precedent now, are we going to be seeing, for example, people dragging the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is the monetary policy organization, to court, perhaps over interest rates cuts or stuff like that? Is it a bit concerning for you? Then the second question is, around what you said, that the alternative payment channels, perhaps we should be seeing zero charges for online or e-payments systems. Have you also factored in, for example, the processing and the settlement fees that are incurred by banks? Then the third leg of this question, Kalu, sorry I'm bombarding you with questions, is that we're seeing now, because of the poor implementation of this Naira redesign program, that Naira is even trading against itself. I was speaking with a relative last week. In fact, the person cried like it was an SOS call to me that, Ma, where can we see cash? I was told to buy 4,000 Naira for 10,000 Naira. You know, so these are some of the stories, these are some of the experiences that Nigerians are facing right now. Kalu, over to you.
Yeah, let me see if I can answer all true. I think the fees should be paid by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So if you go to, if let's say you use a private money transfer service, that fee that should have been paid by you, the central bank should cover it for this period of pain for Nigerians. So it shouldn't be free to the providers of the service, but the central bank should cover that fee for your POS fee. The central bank should cover it. That's maybe I should make that clarification. In terms of the monetary policy question, I think the question really for us is printing of Naira and the issuance of the dates for legal tender, is that 100% monetary policy? That I think what is really the real question. I'm not sure the central bank will dabble into interest rates, but in this case, the question was the timing, the decision, not the decision. I think the governors were saying that there was no time given and it was confiscation of cash. Well, central banks confiscate cash. That's monetary policy. When you raise interest rates or when you raise the bank deposit rates, what have you done? You've confiscated cash. So it's more of the question of how the policy was implemented. And that's why I believe CBN then stuck to the time to say we're going to extend the time. They didn't touch the policy itself, they touched the timing. So maybe we should read that to say, okay, central bank can interpret as usual this agreement between the tiers of government, federal or state, in terms of how those powers are executed. But it is very, very clear. Monetary policy is independent and is only governed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. This is beyond Nigeria. If we try to mess with that, then we're going to get into trouble with international parties and we could get gray listed. So I hope we don't start to dabble in tomorrow. Somebody will sue to reduce NPR because, or to make Naira $1 to £1. That would not be in our best interest. The last one, Naira, trading on Naira, is the uncertainty we're talking about, Nancy. It's all over the place. We don't know which currency is real now. So as we speak today, we don't know which currency is legal tender. Is the 200 Naira we see that CBN has, this Supreme Court has said it's legal tender to December, is it really? Has CBN given a statement on that? Can banks accept that? Can I pay bills with that? We really don't know. So is this uncertainty that's causing the imperfections in the market and is creating this arbitrage, negative arbitrage for Nigerians? That's what's going on, and that's very, very bad for Nigerians. We deserve better. And I think there should be a way the central bank should credit folks that have least suffered for this. That's my take again.
Do you think that the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria are deliberately silent on the way forward because they are really caught in the middle?
Yes, because in all honesty, the elephant in the room is the elections. We all know that this Naira change. Remember that there's a cashless policy and there's Naira design policy. The Naira design policy was done in a haste and given a very, very short window because of non-monetary issues, i.e., terrorism, banditry, and politics. I had told someone that by March, Naira will be everywhere, and the central bank is going to accept whatever the government say because they need to get through the elections before they would allow the old notes or whatever to circulate. So the silence is a bit deliberate to say, let's get through Saturday. Then after Saturday, by next week, you hear them say that we agree or whatever with the CBN ruling, and then they'll be back to normal and you can bring your Naira back. So I think that Saturday elections is the milestone. Once we get past that, then even the governors will no longer have interest in Naira. You see it all die away. Nobody will talk about Naira again because it's no longer useful, right? So that's really the elephant in the room.
Okay, Kalu, I know you've been monitoring international press, at least since we've gotten a president-elect. I've been reading all sorts of articles. Bloomberg said in one of their articles that no matter who is going to be elected, that person won't be able to fix our fiscal problems. We did get snapshots of some of what global press has been saying, from Washington Post to Financial Times. I think it was Financial Times that said Nigeria's president-elect faces vote doubt and poverty and violence. It was, I think also Financial Times that said Nigeria's presidential election was badly flawed. Which one have I read? So many, really. What do you make out of all of this? And also from your intro, okay, that's Chatham House's own. Nigeria's election result puts disenfranchisement in the spotlight. We've seen also global press, perhaps is it in Poland or in Austria or some other countries where they don't speak English, comment on the last presidential election that we had. So what do you think about all of this, and what kind of signal is it sending? Do you think that the world really has confidence in the kind of elections we've conducted, and confidence in the president-elect whom we have now, who is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is a self-styled godfather of Lagos, as some articles also put it?
I think that is two things, right? I think number one, what I'm struck by is the lack of interest in the elections in Nigeria till after elections had occurred. I believe that they were more interested in the process than the politicians in the politics. That's my take, that they would have accepted anybody as the president of Nigeria if we had a very good election. I think the real damage that has come is not who has been declared as the elected president-elect, but the process, because the process then throws up it brings up the issue that there might be violence and there might be disagreements, and that would cause the economy to suffer. The only reason why the international press in Nigerian elections is because they lend Nigeria billions of dollars. So we owe Wall Street, give or take, about $20 to $30 billion, right? And they need that money back. They need that money back. So they want someone that's going to be elected that will keep the country calm, would fix the fiscal and macroeconomic issues, and pay them back. So if anybody that got elected and the process was smooth, the elections were well regarded, they don't care. But in this case now, they see that the electoral process, it was too glaring. The process of electing, like I'm quoting someone here, the process of being excellency was not excellent. And it throws up a real legal challenge. And no matter what we say, there will be a hint of legitimacy with that win. This puts pressure on whoever is going to be president-elect to do things that he would not have done because he wants to make friends. So let me be very clear. There are some hard decisions coming through for Nigerians with the fuel subsidy, with inflation, with the oil prices and all that. The next president is going to take some very, very unpopular decisions to fix the economy that Mr. Buhari has left behind. With these issues going on, he might be forced to be populist. Okay, he's not going to take away fuel subsidy so fast because he's afraid that if he does it so fast, the other party will take advantage of it and label him and then win elections in 4 years. That will delay the reforms that should happen almost immediately. That's my fear going forward. That's going to cause people to perhaps expect more from him, and he will be forced to give more to people just to retain the legitimacy that this has caused. But the international press overall, Nancy, is not being pretty. There's a Kenyan cartoonist, I don't want to repeat what he said on air, but it's not being pretty. People are not really enthused about what has happened in Nigeria last week. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kalu. I know we'll come back to this, and especially after Saturday's election, the governorship and state assembly elections. I'll be talking to you soon. You've raised a very vital point, which is the president-elect, when he gets sworn in, he might be forced to go on with welfarist or popular policies, which will be inimical to the economy, and I don't think we are all thinking along this path. So thank you very much for pointing that out, and we'll look at that after Saturday's election, and definitely how much value is INEC going to bring also to this forthcoming elections vis-a-vis how much money has been budgeted or how much has been released to INEC. So Kalu, You will still stay with me. Not now. I'll talk to you soon after all of this has passed. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Thank you.
You have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye. All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. I've been speaking with Kalu Aja, who is a financial analyst, trending economic issues. That's how we'll leave it today. Please join me again tomorrow for another edition of Moneyline with Nancy on African Independent Television. Be the best you can be the change you want to see. And happy International Women's Day to all women out there. Bye for now.